Hi guys, it's Ryan again. We weren't able to get together this past week and record an episode. Hopefully we're gonna get together this week to record uh, new episodes, including the 200th episode of the Save Continue podcast, which gets me very excited. We've recorded 200 episodes already, so it's a pretty big deal. I guess I thought I'd check in once again and talk to you guys, see how you're doing. You guys can see how I'm doing, see how I'm living. I was actually thinking today about what my favorite video games are. Well, specifically, how my tastes have changed over the past 25 years. And when I was a kid, I think that my favorite uh, genre was definitely RPGs, specifically JRPGs. Um, and now I feel like over the last 25 years or so, that's really shifted because now I'm more looking at fighting games and action adventure. I did a post earlier on the Facebook, kind of outlining that, but from when I was a kid, for the longest time, and up until like well into my adult years, um, my favorite game was River City Ransom. I'm gonna take my glasses off because the glare is insane. My favorite game was River City Ransom for like the longest time. That was like really the only game that I would that was the only game I would mention when someone asked me what my favorite game was. And then in 2016, when the newer Doom had come out, then like I was so enamored by that game that became my favorite game of all time, and it very much still is. Maybe Doom Eternal will be my favorite when that comes out, but I think that Doom 2016 is my favorite because it was just so much of a revelation, and it was a really really awesome way to you know bring Doom as, and it's like almost, if you think about it, kind of like the original essence of what Doom had always been into like the 21st century, because we've had Dooms this century. We had Doom 3, which was a good game in its own right, but it was more of a Doom 3 felt very much like a survival horror game, it felt like a survival horror game with a heavier emphasis on action than most survival horror games, but it still very much felt like a survival horror game for the most part. And its main focus was on mood and environmental storytelling and stuff like that. It was a game that I feel was very much trying to scare you, which was cool, but it wasn't what I'd always known Doom to be. And so when 2016 came out, it almost felt like playing the first Doom all over again. I think that Doom 2016 is the way, it's the amount of fun that I had playing that game is the way I remember, playing the original Doom. And that that kind of that revision of the Doom formula was just the coolest thing in the world to me. So it just stuck out to me as like this amazing game. And I don't think that like a lot of there have been a lot of games that have been rebooted in like the last like 10 years or so, but I don't think any game really had the effect on me that Doom had. And it's funny because I'm over the past year and a half or so, I've been playing a lot of fighting games, and like I definitely have my favorite fighting games, but I think that like if my favorite game is like just resides outside of that. But I think it's weird because I used to love JRPGs like so much. I think one of the things that I loved about them so much was how you could just the way that you could just walk up to and talk to anybody. There's something about that I always really liked. And I think that one of the main draws of every RPG that I ever played was that never really got old to me. And I really didn't have a grasp though of how to actually play those games. Um, Turn-based like combat was just always such a weird thing for me when I was a kid, and I didn't really understand how that stuff worked. And I didn't really understand, how to kind of optimize characters and stuff like that, because I don't think most kids, at that time, or maybe even now, but I remember most kids, they didn't think about min-maxing or grinding out levels or anything like that. You just kind of just went along with the story as much as you could. And I remember I rented a lot of JRPGs, and I don't know why I would do that, because I think that at most, depending on where I rented from, I had between 1 and 3 days to play it. And most RPGs can't, I wouldn't be able to finish most RPGs in that period of time. But that was always what I would prefer to rent. Not always, but a lot of the time, if I saw one, I would definitely prefer to rent it. The thing about it though is when I was renting games, RPGs like the SNES era, there's always someone else's save file on the cartridge, and pretty frequently I would load up that save file just to see like all the stuff that they had unlocked and all the characters they had and everything. And because I figured, like, why not? I wasn't going to finish the game in 3 days anyway. So I was playing a lot of those. And then, as I got older, I still played them, but I think that my attention has shifted away from them quite a bit. And I started just playing a lot of action adventure games. And I really think that I came back around to that, maybe in my my mid-20s. I started playing more RPGs again, but I also was playing like more Western RPGs, like a lot of the more a lot of the more action-focused RPGs. Like I was playing a lot of Elder Scrolls, playing games like that kind of gave me more, I guess, what I felt was freedom over how I played the game. Because I think what really attracted me to those games is I felt like I had more agency over what kind of character I was playing as, and I think that in a lot of JRPGs that I played at the time, where your characters were set archetypes, and they you played them how the game wanted you to, and I guess I wasn't as attracted to that as I had been. And I guess over time, I liked RPGs, but I just didn't like them in the same way that I had, and which is why, like, I was really into games like the Elder Scrolls or Mass Effect, especially Mass Effect, which made me feel like I was, like I had a direct hand in, crafting what the narrative was, because I think that a lot of JRPGs at the time, I like sometimes you get dialogue choices and things like that, but you were always kind of like the path was pretty much set, it felt like. And I think that with the games like Mass Effect, like the conclusion is kind of set, but at the same time, your the route that you travel to get to that conclusion is, it's a lot more varied and potentially more interesting. So those were the kind of games that I really liked. But I think that now, my attention has really shifted to, like I said, more action adventure games and more, fighting games. Because like I mentioned last week, I've been playing a lot of Red Dead Online. And I've been, I play a lot of fighting games. I play Mortal Kombat. I've been thinking about getting back into Street Fighter. I really feel like I should, but it's hard for me to split my attention between more than one fighting, because I just it's hard for me to kind of adjust to the different styles, especially the difference between Samurai Showdown and Mortal Kombat. Like, one is really, really fast, and the other is, well, not really, really fast, but comparatively speaking, really fast. And switching to Samurai Showdown, like trying to get myself in that mindset is really difficult. So It's hard for me to balance two fighting games at once, but I keep, I'll keep trying it. I keep buying them, so. But yeah, and I actually did get some. I did get some responses on that post, and I'd like to take a look at it and see what some other people have said. Let's see. So, some of you like third person action games or hack and slash dungeon crawlers, which I really like. I've always been a really big fan of Diablo. I never actually, funny thing is I never actually played the first Diablo, but from Diablo 2 on, I've always really liked it, and I really liked Diablo 3, and I do like games like that because there is like a sort of a satisfaction of having like all those enemies on screen at once and just kind of just tearing through them and watching those numbers go up and up and up, and like as your gear goes up, like those numbers go up. And then like if you have a character who has a lot of AoE, because I love characters in dungeon crawlers who have like a lot of AoE magic. And that's why I really love the Witch Doctor in Diablo 3, because they just have like so much AoE and damage over time stuff, and it's really awesome. One of you said racing games, which I do like racing games. I there was a period of time where I was actually really into sim racers. I do like arcade racers though, but I was always really into sim racers because I always felt like with a sim, actually getting the hang of it and having really good laps and everything, like, just was so much more satisfying because of how much more practice I think it takes, especially like with the dirt games, and with how much like you can tune the car and having the settings on the car actually work in your favor, like after you're tooling around with it in a bit. And Forza Horizon was always billed as a more arcadey racer, but it still felt very sim-like to me. But I do like racing games a lot. I don't play them as much as I used to. I think maybe 10 years ago, I was really into Grid. I don't know how many of you played that, but that was one of my games that I played like all the time. And I like games like that because Grid was cool because it kind of it mixed different driving disciplines into one game. Like you had your grip driving, and you also had some toge driving. You also had had drift circuits. So that was always really neat. And I think that more games should do that. It is cool when a game can specialize in one specific thing and kind of focus on that and make a really, really cool version of one of those kind of games. But it's also really cool to see a game that can mix different kinds of racing, because it kind of mixes it up. One of you guys said roguelikes, Metroidvanias. I was really into roguelikes a few years ago, but then every game was a roguelike for a while, and I kind of got burned out on it. Well, every game said it was a roguelike, right? But I kind of just didn't really like those games after a while, because it just all of it sort of felt pretty samey. But there were some that stuck out. Like I really like Dead Cells. I like that game a lot. I'm really into Enter the Gungeon. Tom, I know, likes Spelunky a lot. Like he had some kind of revelation with Spelunky a few months back, and it was just like got really heavy into it. So roguelikes can definitely be cool. I just, I kind of take it with a grain of salt when a game tells me it's a roguelike, because it's not always that much of one. But some I think that people should definitely check out, like that kind of put a different spin on the formula. So I think that a lot of the time when we hear roguelikes, like I think for me anyway, I think like platformers or dungeon crawlers of some kind. That's what I think of typically. But when you have a game that kind of puts a different spin on it, it's really neat. Like there's a game called Everspace that came out, gosh, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. I could be wrong about that, but it's basically a space shooter that's a roguelike. So run-based, very arcadey space shooter. Actually, it's a space shooter that plays more like a first-person shooter, which is really neat. But you basically roll like formula. You go different runs, and then as like between runs, you're putting upgrades on your ship. So I think most people would actually refer to that as a roguelite, because of the persistent progression that you can have. But yeah, that's a really good one to check out. Metroidvanias. I think the last Metroidvania I actually played was Guacamelee. I never actually finished it, nor did I play the second one, but that's probably one of my favorites that I've played in a while. Though I'd have to say the best Metroidvania that I've played in the past decade or so has definitely been Arkham Asylum. So that's one you should definitely check out. Which I think a lot of people didn't really get into the Arkham games. Well, let me rephrase that. A lot of people that I know didn't really get into the Arkham games because I think that they felt like, they didn't feel like they would understand what was going on because a lot of them don't know that much about Batman. But I don't think it's a game that you need to know that much about Batman to enjoy. I think those games are fine. Like, you could know nothing about Batman and have a really good time with it. And the combat in those games is just really fun. It's really simple, but it just feels good, and it gives you a lot of tools and a lot of ways to kind of circumvent any threats that you have. Lastly, when you guys said RPGs, which I thought was it's something that I, like I said, I do like RPGs. It's just I haven't played as many of them lately, just because I guess I don't know if it's not having the patience for it, because I feel like I can't say that I don't have the patience for RPGs and also pour as much time as I have into fighting games and Red Dead Online, because I feel like both of those take a lot of, like, an insane amount of patience, especially Red Dead Online with how much of a grind that game is. But I don't know. I haven't really seen one that's grabbed my attention lately, but there are a lot of them out there though, so I'm definitely looking to check some out. My girlfriend and I were talking about Final Fantasy X, which is a game, admittedly, I played when it came out, but like it never stuck with it, and the characters didn't resonate with me that much at the time. I think that game came out when I want to say I was 17 or 18. I think it was 17 or 18 when that game came out, and I guess the characters just didn't resonate with me as much as a lot of other people. But it's one of those games though that we've had conversations about a few times, and it's got me thinking about revisiting it, and because I feel like I'd be approaching it with a new lens, and I think it might probably be more interesting this time around, especially. I feel like that game does have a lot of really cool things going for it. Specifically, though, I think that game has like the best combat system in the series. As far as the turn-based titles are concerned, I think it does it the best because I think it does it in a way that makes the most sense. I think being able to actively switch out your members during combat is like such a huge thing, and I don't know why they don't all do that. So I do think I'm going to revisit it, in the near future. But yeah, it's really cool to be able to talk to you guys about, favorite games and what kind of games that we like. And it's really cool that some of you, engaged with me on that. And I got some insight on what kind of games you guys like. But anyway, I'm going to end it here. We're gonna be recording full episodes this weekend, so we'll have the next two episodes up and ready to go. We're gonna be recording the 199th and the 200th episode of the Save Continue podcast. So I'm really excited. So episode 199 will be up this time next week. So keep your eyes open for that. And once again, thank you for hanging out with me and listening to me talk about video games for the last 20 minutes. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.